Come on, guys, let's go. Come on, guys, let's go. Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. I'm the cat gardener. My name is Diana and I have a small urban garden in St. Louis. And today we have a special guest because I am filming in Rome right now. This is Pumba and he'll be a part of our video today. I post videos about maximizing small garden spaces to get abundant harvests. If you're new to my channel, hit the subscribe button down below to get updates. Hi guys, welcome to my garden in St. Louis. Just kidding! This is the garden of a Roman emperor. Who was the cat emperor? So I post a lot of videos about growing annual vegetables, but do you guys ever get tired of having to seed things every year and having to deal with the upkeep? If you do, I think that's why it's really nice to plant perennials as well, to have a balanced garden. You plant them once and they come back year after year for decades to come. They die back in the winter, but they grow back from the roots in the springtime. So perennial edibles are perfect for lazy gardeners, people who just want to set it and forget it. So today, I'm going to rank the best perennial fruits and vegetables to plant in your garden. And I'm going to keep it focused on stuff that we're able to grow as perennials here in my zone 7 or above. And by the way, we're only going to talk about perennial edibles today and not any perennial flowers. So here are all of the things that we're going to rank today. These are all things that we can grow here in zone 7. And we're going to talk about classical stuff like apple trees, as well as some exotic stuff like prickly pear, for example. So let's get started. First up, we have the artichoke. So the artichoke, I'm very surprised to have this on here actually. It's classically a Mediterranean plant and it thrives in places like California with really temperate climates. In fact, most of the US production of artichoke takes place in California. So I was super surprised to realize that artichoke can even be grown perennially in zone 7. That being said, its growth is limited here compared to that in California. So in temperate places like California, they make 2 crops during the year. They make one big one in the spring and a smaller one in the fall. But here in zone 7, we can only get a fall crop. The other downside of growing artichokes is that they're humongous plants. They take a lot of space. So for me, with a small garden, this doesn't really work out. Like the thought of dedicating a large part of my garden to something that only produces a small crop every year, that doesn't seem to be worth it to me. So I'm gonna have to put this in the D tier. But for those of you who are able to grow this outside of a temperate area like California, please reach out to me and let me know how you do it. Like how big of a harvest can you get? How tender is it? Is it worth it? I imagine it is because artichokes are one of the most delicious things that we can have in the springtime. Like you steam it with some garlic and then you serve it with olive oil and it's just an amazing thing to have in the spring. Next up, we've got asparagus. Asparagus is one of the many things that taste much better grown in your own garden than you find at the store. Like, can you imagine biting into a fresh asparagus that's so tender compared to that woody crap that you find at the store? So it's a good reason to plant it. Now, in terms of planting it though, it takes a while for these plants to get established, like 3 years. But once they get going, you can have them for up to like 20 years. So I would say asparagus is, I guess because of the patience involved and having to wait 3 years during which you cannot harvest it, you shouldn't harvest it because you want to encourage the growth. So I'm gonna have to say B tier for asparagus. So next up, we've got berries. And in this category, I'm including raspberries, blackberries, black raspberries, mulberries. And I'm gonna have to say A tier. They are super productive and very low in terms of pest or disease pressure. I wouldn't call them S tier because it can be a little bit hard maintaining them. Like blackberries and raspberries grow on canes and they can really get out of control. You want to keep them tidy using a trellis and you have to stay on top of that because they grow wild. And mulberries, I also wouldn't call them S tier. Like they're notorious for staining everything. Like when they drop from the trees onto cars, they make a huge mess. And when birds eat it and then poop it out, they also make a huge mess. But I do offer you an alternative option. There are white varieties out there that taste amazing, but don't stain. Next, we've got another berry. Blueberry is in its own category. It's very special. So Obviously, who wouldn't love to have blueberries in their garden? Like, they become really prolific after a few years, and it's way better tasting, way cheaper than anything you'll find at the market. Problem with blueberries, which is a major problem, is you gotta acidify the soil. Like, they want pH of 5, which is insane to achieve. Believe me, I'm trying that actively in my garden right now. It's really hard to amend the soil to reach that kind of a pH. Like, it will take a lot of time, and so you might as well just do containers instead for blueberries. So I'm gonna have to go with C tier just because the acidity is a major limitation for most people. Next up, we've got garlic chives. So this is definitely S tier, no doubt about it. They grow really easily. Like, if you have a desire for an omelet where you want to give it a nice garlic flavor, just cut some garlic chives and then the rest of it will just keep continuing to grow. They're also super easy to divide and transplant. So the plant that I have, I got it from a friend who had so much garlic chives growing because they do accumulate after years, and she wanted to divide them, and she gave me some of it, and I was able to transplant it very easily. And now I have my own permanent crop. They flower in the fall. They make these beautiful purple flowers. They go dormant in the winter, and then they come back in the springtime, and summer they start making a lot of garlic chives. Next on the list, we have figs. So I couldn't believe it a few years ago when I learned that this Mediterranean plant could be grown perennially in a zone like mine, where we get cold winters. Like, that was unfathomable. So I put it to the test. I went out there and I bought the most cold tolerant variety, which is the Chicago Hardy. I planted it into the ground, and then one season later, I was able to get figs off of it that summer, which is amazing. Like, they were more delicious than anything I could find at the store. And figs essentially have no pest or disease issues. So the only thing you have to do to help it endure the winters here is to protect it. I use a combination of straw and plastic tarp. So in terms of taste, definitely S tier, but the fact that you have to do all the winter protection, I'm gonna drop it down to A tier. Next up, this apple is supposed to represent fruit trees in general. In this category, apples are probably the most notorious for having disease and pest issues, so much so that they're one of the most pesticide-sprayed fruit trees out there. And along a similar line, peach trees, while they can grow here, they suffer from disease like fungus. So for these fruit trees, I'm gonna have to say C tier. But I'm going to give you some options for other fruit trees that are not as pest and disease ridden as apples and peaches. Not all apples are made the same. Some smaller ones like crab apples are actually more disease resistant, so consider those if you really want to do apple. And then we also have Asian pears and American persimmons. Those are much less maintenance than apples and peaches. And next we have herbs. The kinds of herbs that are perennial in this zone are sage, oregano, thyme, rosemary, and mint. And without a doubt, these are all S tier. These guys are awesome to have in the garden. It's not like annual herbs like parsley and cilantro and basil that you have to plant annually. These guys will live in your garden forever and provide you an endless supply of flavors for your cooking. Next up, we have mushrooms. Did you guys know that mushrooms can be easily grown in your own backyard? I thought if you didn't have the fortune of living near a forest where you could go forage for your own mushrooms, that you were straight out of luck. But it turns out that mushroom growing is really easy. Like, you can grow shiitake mushrooms on logs in your own backyard. You can have a bed of wood chips where you grow wine cap mushroom. It's really easy to buy spawn to inoculate. And once you inoculate the wood chips or the logs, you can get fruiting up to 3 years with zero maintenance required. Now, the only issue is that shiitake has to grow on a log. You have to find logs that are fresh, that aren't dried out, and I don't have a lot of options. I am not some kind of a tree cutter with my own axe or anything like that. I went to the parks in my city where they have tree cutting services deposit logs, but those logs were dried out, so I wasn't able to inoculate them effectively for shiitake, unfortunately. So despite the mushrooms being so easy, I would say just because of shiitake needing the logs, the fresh logs to grow on, I'm gonna have to put it into the A tier. Next, we have native fruit trees and shrubs like elderberries and serviceberries and pawpaws. So these I put in a different category from the apple trees and the persimmons because those are not native. I keep the native fruits in a different category because they're hardy and they're resilient, and you don't need to spray them with a ton of pesticide the way you would with apple or peach trees. In my opinion, because native fruits are just so easy to grow and so resilient, they absolutely belong in the S tier category. In my garden, I grow elderberries, and they're kind of like shrubs or small trees. They produce berries that are tart and kind of a mix between blueberry and currants, and I have 2 of them so that they can cross-pollinate. I also have a serviceberry, which is a small tree, and it produces a fruit that tastes like a nutty blueberry. And the most famous native fruit to my region is the pawpaw tree. It's actually the largest native fruit of the region. I don't grow this myself, but people rave about it. Apparently the flavor is a mix of banana and mango, and the consistency is like a pineapple. Very interesting. If only I had the space for it. Next up, we have perennial greens, and I'm going to put them into S tier. Tasty perennial greens in my zone includes sorrel, sea kale, Turkish rocket, and hostas. You may not have heard of these vegetables, and I didn't either until a few years ago when I started looking into edible perennials. These are not the run-of-the-mill things that you find at the grocery store. They're really easy to grow in your own backyard though. Sorrel is one of the first things that will come back to life in the springtime. It's a leafy green that has a lemony flavor. It can be used in salads, or it can be used as a flavor enhancer like an herb in soups. Sea kale, this is very new to me. So it's naturally found in the coastal areas of Europe. It's like a combination of cabbage and kale, and the shoots and the leaves are both edible. Another perennial green that grows great here is known as the Turkish rocket. It grows so great that it's basically like a weed, and it's actually not like rocket. It's not like arugula. It's more like broccoli rabe, actually. And last for perennial greens, hostas. So this is something that people just grow for their landscaping. It's like great for shaded landscaping gardens. But did you guys know that the young shoots of the hostas can be eaten and they taste like asparagus? I mean, that's really cool. Like if you have a shaded garden, you can plant hostas for nice landscaping, obviously, but you can also plant them to get something like asparagus. Next up, we have passion fruit. So the maypop is a cold hardy variety of passion fruit that's native to this entire southeast region of America. It dies back into the ground in the winter, and it grows vigorously again in the spring. It makes these beautiful flowers that can be used for medicinal purposes. The leaves of it are edible, and the fruits are like a more tart version of the passion fruits that you find in the tropics. It's such an interesting exotic plant with an amazing fruit, and I do want to put it into the S tier. Unfortunately, I'm going to have to knock it down to A tier, and that's because these guys are aggressive vines, and if you plant them into the ground, they're going to take over everything. So you do have to plant them into a container, and that means in the winter you have to move it to some place like a garage. Next on this list, I threw in this non-classical perennial plant, but it is perennial if you do things right. So we're going to talk about the pepper now. If you have warm weather all year round, then you can do peppers no problem, but I can also make this work for me in my cold climate by planting peppers in pots. I just have to bring them indoors in the winter so that they can go dormant, but come early summer, I'll be able to take them out again, and at that point they're already established and they'll be able to start producing peppers right away. So for that reason, I'm going to have to put peppers into the S tier. Next on our list is yet another exotic fruit. So this is the prickly pear. So this is a cactus and it makes an edible fruit. And I can't believe that we have a cactus that's actually native to my area. It's well adapted to the cold winters here. And the fruits ripen in the summer and they're edible. And even the pods themselves are actually edible. I've planted it myself because it's really easy to propagate. All you need is a cutting of a little pad and that's it. Stick it into the ground and it will start growing. The problem is in the winters it just gets so cold and wet here that the pads look like they're about to die, but that's not true. In the springtime they do come back to life and they do get plump again, but I've never gotten growth of any fruit, so I wonder if it's just hard to make the fruit because it gets so terribly cold here. It's hard to grow the fruits and instead the cactus just grows pads instead, so I'm gonna have to put it into the D category. Next on the list we have rhubarb. So rhubarbs can take a while to get established, but it's not like the asparagus where you have to avoid harvesting it for 3 years. With rhubarbs, you can start to harvest little by little after just a year, and they do prefer the shade. And by the way, the leaves are toxic, so make sure you get rid of them before you bring it into your home. Once you get it going, it's a great plant, but just because you need to wait a while, like with the asparagus, I'll put it here into the A category. Next up on the list, we've got strawberries. Strawberries, S tier, hands down, without a question. Way better than anything you'll find at the market. Super easy to grow. Next up, we've got something exotic too, at least to me, the sunchoke, also known as the Jerusalem artichoke. They're actually not an artichoke at all. They are, I think, more related to the sunflower family, which is why they also have that name sunchoke. And we grow them for the tubers. And these tubers are actually way healthier than potatoes. They have a lower glycemic index and a higher fiber content. You can cook them by sauteing them. They're delicious that way. And the only problem with them is that if you plant it into the ground, they are aggressive, so I'll have to put it into the A tier. And finally, we have tomatoes, which shouldn't be on a list of perennials, but it's kind of like a quasi-perennial. Let me explain why. I get tons and tons of volunteer tomatoes every year. Tomatoes fall onto the ground, the seeds go back into the soil, and every year they come back for another season, just volunteer plants. So in this regard, I feel like tomatoes are basically like quasi-perennial plants that you don't have to think about doing annual seeding for. You're just going to have them growing in your garden. So because of this, I will say that volunteer tomatoes are going to be in the S category, just because you don't have to lift a finger. That's it for today's video. Thank you guys so much for watching. Please don't forget to subscribe, like, and comment. I'll see you guys next time. Bye.